I want to start today's math lesson by looking at the picture that I have on the screen. And I want you to think in your head, how many pieces did I divide our clock into? So I want you to count the different pieces. Think of it as a pizza. If I divided it into slices, how many slices did I turn our clock into? So just think about that for a second. What'd you come up with? What number of slices did I divide our clock into? If you said the number 4, that would be correct. And let's count them. Here's slice number 1. Here would be slice number 2. This would be slice number 3. And then the last one would be slice number 4. This is important. We're going to come back to this and explain why there are 4 different pieces on this clock. But let's get started by showing you some of the things that I want you to be able to do today. The first thing is that you're going to be able to divide a clock into 4 equal parts, which, hint, hint, here is an example of dividing a clock into 4 equal parts. Next thing is you're going to be able to show me where the minute hand should go if we're telling time to the quarter hour and telling time to quarter past. So we need to know, where does that minute hand go if I say quarter after. You're going to practice showing me, where does the minute hand go for quarter before. So there's 2 different places that minute hand is going to have to go today, and that's what you're going to learn about. And then the last thing is I can put the hour and the minute hand on the clock to show time to the quarter hour. Now this is going to be kind of a tricky lesson, so it's important that you pay attention. But the first thing is we're going to review a little bit about telling time, as well as what does it mean by quarter hour. So now I've got a picture of a pizza here, and I want you again to think back to this clock that I showed you earlier that I had divided into 4 equal pieces. Now that we've divided it into 4 equal pieces, I want you to look at this pizza. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this black line up and down. And we're going to start by just dividing this pizza into 2 equal parts. Okay? So I just want to split this pizza in half. If it was going to be you and a friend that was sharing this pizza, I want you to tell me, where would this black line go to divide it into 2 equal parts. So if I start dragging it, would that be 2 equal parts? No, because the bottom part is way, way bigger than the top part. What about if I move it there? Is that 2 equal parts? Again, that is incorrect, because you can see the bottom part is actually a lot smaller than the top part. What about right here? If I put it there, is that pretty close to dividing it into 2 equal parts? We could say yes. You can see the top part's about the same as the bottom part. So this is 2 equal parts. Now let me move my blue line on here. Now if you think about how many parts I have, I'll show you the numbers. So we have 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, and 4 here. Now think in your head, are those parts all equal? You should be saying no, because this little piece right here is a lot smaller than these 2 big pieces. So then if I move my blue line over here, are those equal parts now? Again, no. This is not equal parts. So if I move this blue line back towards the middle, would you say that is pretty close to being 4 equal parts? If you said yes, that would be correct. Now the reason I chose a pizza is because I want you to kind of think of a clock the same way you would think about a pizza. We make slices of pizza when we eat a pizza. We don't really try and pick up the whole entire thing and eat it. It'd be kind of hot, messy. Parents would probably laugh at us and make fun of us, and maybe even tell us that we aren't going to be able to eat anymore if we try to pick the whole thing up. So that's why we cut it into slices. So I want you just to think about cutting this pizza into 4 slices. Now what does that have to do with telling time to the quarter hour? Now when we have 4 pieces, and I'll move these hands back, or these little lines, to show you those 4 equal pieces. So when we have 4 equal pieces, this is going to help us understand, what does quarter after in quarter 2 mean? So what does quarter after mean? So here would be what quarter after would look like. And then if I went quarter 2, right here where I'm going to put this X would be quarter 2, because we're quarter of the way to getting back to the 12. Now let's talk a little bit more about the quarter hours. So you can see here I've got examples of what does it mean by quarter. So if we go back and look, remember I've got 4 pieces to my clock. Each piece, and the reason that we call it a quarter, is because it's 1 piece out of 4 total. And this fraction, which we'll learn about later this school year, stands for quarter. So that's how we actually get quarter hour. This piece right here is actually 1 piece out of the total 4 pieces that we have. 1, 2, 3, 4. This piece again would be 1 piece out of the 4. Same thing with this piece. It's 1 piece out of those 4 pieces total. And then this last chunk right here would be 1 piece out of those 4 total. So you can see each of these slices of my clock are worth 1.5 quarter or 1/4 of the entire clock. So that's where that we write that by saying 1/4 because there are 4 total pieces. Now, if we go back to talking about the minute hand, and to show what does a quarter actually look like. I told you at the beginning we'd be talking about quarter after, or another way to call it would be quarter past, as well as quarter before or quarter to. So if we're going to be talking about quarter after, I kind of showed you a little bit about this earlier. Quarter after means that that minute hand has only gone one of those 4 pieces around. So you can see I've kind of drawn a circle around that number. What number is in the circle that I just made? If you said 3, you're correct. So this is where your minute hand is always going to go when we're telling time to the quarter hour, but quarter after. So if I ever said quarter after 1, quarter after 2, quarter after 3, quarter after 4, any quarter hour that I say quarter after, that minute hand is always going to point to the 3. Now, when I said quarter before earlier, I showed you I put an X and then I drew an arrow pointing back up towards the 12 because I've gone almost all the way around the clock and I have just one out of those 4 pieces or 1/4 left to go. So it's 1/4 before the next hour, or we could say quarter to, which we've written right here. And again, in this circle, what number is in this circle? It's kind of hard to see. You're going to have to look really close, but behind it you should be able to see a number written. That number is 9. So in this example, anytime we're telling time to quarter hours, but it's quarter before or quarter to, which means the same thing, that minute hand is always going to be pointing right at the 9. So again, quarter after, when we go quarter of the way past or quarter after, the minute hand has to point at 3. Quarter before means that it has to be pointing at the 9. So let's practice some of this before we get into our small group today. So what I have here is I have a clock, and you can see that it's showing the current time, but let's change it so that we have a time that you're familiar with. This would be 6 o'clock. Our minute hand's pointing right at the 12. My hour hand, the red hand, is pointing at the hour, which tells us it is 6 o'clock. Now let's start by just practicing quarter after. To show you quarter after, I again told you this earlier, that the minute hand will always point at the 3. This one would be quarter after 6 o'clock. So if I did this, this would be quarter after 4 o'clock. So let's try a few others. Remember, we're going to stick with quarter after, so it's always going to be quarter after. This would be quarter after what? Say it in your head. What would this be? Quarter after 8. This would be quarter after 11. This would be quarter after 6. This would be quarter after 1. This would be quarter after 10. Good. So that's quarter after. The minute hand always points at the 3. That's something that's never going to change. Quarter after, the minute hand will always point at the 3. The other one that we talked about today would be quarter to or quarter before. So for this example, the minute hand is always going to be pointing directly at the 9. As I move this hour hand around, you can see that minute hand is not moving. The hour hand keeps moving, but the minute hand does not move. To show quarter before, the minute hand is always going to be pointing directly at the 9. So in this example, we would say this is showing quarter before or quarter to, which means the same thing, quarter to 8. Since you can see my hour hand is about ready to touch 8. So if my minute hand kept going along, you could see it is almost 8 o'clock. So we would say with that minute hand touching the 9 that this would be quarter to 8. Okay, so let's try another one. This would be quarter to 1. This would be quarter to 4. This would be quarter to 12. This would be quarter to 6. Last one. This would be quarter to 11. So again, in small group today, we're going to be practicing a little bit more with our quarter hours to the quarter after as well as the quarter to. So you'll be working in small group on a practice book page that allows us to practice telling time over some half hours as well as the new quarter hours that we just learned about today. But that'll be it for today's lesson. We'll talk more about this in our small groups.